Hello, everybody. Welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door and join us. And another one bites the dust. A very bad morning if you are Jason Tindall, because Jason Tindall has been fired from Bournemouth in his first season as a full-time manager. Eddie Howe's long-term assistant. A bad run. Bournemouth 6th in the Championship, and the owners have shot the bullet, and we are going to get into the whys and the wherefores. Here is the club statement. AFC Bournemouth have parted company with manager Jason Tindall, a decision which not been taken lightly given Tindall's outstanding commitment to the club, player, assistant and manager. However, and we can almost stop at this sentence, recent performances have fallen well below the board's expectations. We feel a change is needed now to give the club the best possible chance of achieving the goals that were clearly set out last summer. We would like to place on record our thanks to Jason for his services to AFC Bournemouth over the past 22 years. Again, let me just focus you in on two it's actually quite transparent as a football club statement goes. Recent performances have fallen below the board's expectations. A change is needed now in order to give the club the best possible chance of achieving the goals. So, obviously, the goal is automatic promotion. It's a year one relegated parachute payment receiving team with some Premier League players remaining in that squad. And, given the recent run, Bournemouth have chosen to act. Let's have a look at the kind of details here. This was the task that Tindall was given. Look down the bottom there. That is last season, relegated by 1 point in the end, Bournemouth in the Premier League. If you look up, that pretty much takes us through all Bournemouths Rise there. Promoted up from League 2, 3 seasons in League 1. 2 seasons in the Championship, all the way through, all the way up. 5 seasons there in the Premier League before they came back down. A meteoric rise. I know some people are split. Obviously, the plucky little Bournemouth tag has kind of been debunked by the FFP charges on 2 of the promotions. However, we cannot be churlish about the achievement of going all the way through. And for those people, and there is a sensible argument here, that think that FFP actually stops a Bournemouth story, they will still like this story. But what we're saying is this is the end of a big climb, and Bournemouth would have been wanting to bounce back at the first time. Look at their attendance and commercial revenues and things of that nature. And when we consider some of the clubs, I'm talking Leeds, Aston Villa we've had recently in the Championship, and then the likes of a Forest, a Derby, a Sheffield Wednesday, all struggling in the Championship actually. Bournemouth aren't a big club, even by Championship standards in recent years. So they really want to press home this advantage now, because as we all know, in the Championship, anyone with those parachute payments is a big club. They've got those resources. Can they make them count? Now, when we're talking about money, we have to be very transparent about this. There are the ins and outs in the summer. So, in very simple terms, you're taking a Premier League squad and you're going to sell all the best players. So, what Jason Tindall was ending up working with was a relegated squad with the best players taken out of it. That's where we need to go. Now, I remember reading a story in The Athletic just before Bournemouth got relegated, talking about a bit of a financial cliff edge that they were on in respects of back payments for transfers. And I think there'd been some quite bad, quite expensive recruitment on players. I think Dom Solanke always gets mentioned, Jordan Ibe, that were expensive but didn't quite work out in the Premier League. And I think they paid for it in the summer. And this is what happened. So out Ake, Wilson, Ramsdale and Arta for the thick end there, 40, 60, 75 million, plus then Butcher, Smith, Defoe, Fraser, they lost for nothing, Borich and Ibe. I'll repeat myself. You take a team that were not winning games last season and literally all of the best players go out. Yes, there were good players left. We do acknowledge that. But essentially, when we're talking about, and this is important given the succession plan and the strategy of actually hiring Tindall, when you take the mainstays out of a squad, you cannot expect the pattern of play to remain exactly the same because, you know, in the main, it was those players carrying that out on the pitch. And now you're going to take players in who weren't performing, weren't actually getting minutes and expect them to perform the same pattern of play that the previous manager did. So, and then you look at the, I've got ins and outs written the wrong way around. You know what I mean there. Rodrigo Riquelme and Cameron Carter-Vickers. I mean, you know, it's a couple of loan signings. Riquelme's a young guy who may have a good career. Carter-Vickers has been on loan in the Championship at Sheffield United and Ipswich and Swansea and Stoke and Luton and everyone else. What I'm saying is the business in the summer was cut the losses and can we get back as with as little fuss as possible with the remainder of last season's squad, and basically no new signings. I've written there, happy Christmas, and it was, because there is Jason Tindall's first run of games, and look at that, played 20, won 10, drawn 8, lost only 2 games. So in some respects it worked. There was a lot of draws in there, like we say, 8 draws in the first 20, matched by Brentford there, but certainly the highest joint in the top 6. As they went into Christmas, a load of clean sheets there as well. Big wins over over Huddersfield, and Barnsley. High scoring games there, 4-2 where they came back from 2-0 against Reading. So they're second in the league at Christmas. Some sense that maybe the players were carrying it. But that was the strategy, wasn't it? The strategy here was, okay, we think the remaining players we haven't sold are good enough. We think they can just eke out the good work that was done by the previous regime, which of course Tindall was a part of, and kind of get us back up. You know, no new strategy, just send these players. And I mean, when you look at it, sort of a Begovic, Rico or Kelly, Steve Cook, Mepham, Stacey or Smith in there, a Lerma, a Lewis Cook, Billing, and then up top, Dan Juma, Riquelme in on loan, like we said, Surridge, Solanke, David Brooks, one of the best in the division. And of course, Josh King just trying to keep himself fit to get his transfer out the door in January. I mean, you tell me in the comments, was that strategy ever going to work? The players do seem good enough, but we've seen it with Neil Adams at Norwich in 14-15. We've seen it with Darren Moore, West Brom 18-19. Didn't work either time. They both got fired. And now Tindall has also been fired as well. So this idea that you fire the manager of a failing Premier League team, bring in, a maybe inexperienced, maybe slightly cheaper assistant or guy doing the first job, and that then get rid of the mainstays and the remainder of the squad will eke out a season. There's just plenty of evidence now that it doesn't work. And here comes the bad run. Now, I say a lot on the channel, 2 things can be true. And yes, it is a horrible bad run, but there was a couple of sliding doors moments and a little bit of bad luck, honestly, at the start of it. We did Brentford versus Bournemouth as a watch-along that they lost 2-1. Bournemouth were outstanding for the first 25 minutes of that game and ended up losing. Perhaps that's not unlucky. Perhaps that is all the evidence you need that it was the players were carrying it. And then when Brentford, the more savvy Championship team with the more savvy Championship manager in Thomas Frank, ultimately went on and got the win. But I thought Bournemouth were incredible for the first 20 minutes. Could have put the game out of sight. End up losing. A win then at Stoke. And then a draw at home to Millwall. And here is the real unlucky moment. Because no one can deny a losing streak then ensues that starts with a home game against Luton where Jefferson Lerma was controversially sent off, and the EFL admitted it as well afterwards because they rescinded the red card. So Luton went on to win the game. Yes, a lot of other things can be true, but a little bit of bad luck at the start of that losing streak because, as I say, we have complete evidence in the rescinding of the red card that Jeff Lerma getting sent off early in that game, Luton going on to win it, was the start of the bad run. Yes, the bad run may have come later or in a month's time or whatever. But a little bit of bad luck there. And then they lose at Derby, pummeled really in the first half at Reading. And then we all looked at the fixtures and I'll hold my hands up, I called this wrong. And it was Sheffield Wednesday at home, then Birmingham at home. And I was like, right, okay, Tindall's on a bad run. But here comes the regression to the mean, and they'll push back up towards fourth place. Maybe the Bournemouth higher-ups thought perhaps that might happen, but at the first sign it wasn't going to happen. They were going to act. And last night they lost 2-1 at home to Sheffield Wednesday, who are in the relegation zone. 6 points deducted. Yes, they are in good form, Sheffield Wednesday. 16 points in 7 games for the Owls. But come on, it's a club with a 6-point deduction who've had 3 managers this season. The owner keeps coming out with incredible nonsense in press conferences. Bournemouth should be able to be more competitive at home. And we did on the stream last night. I had this game on and you can watch it back. I say 2 or 3 times, something's not right here. Something's not quite right. All the gusto and the intensity was out of Bournemouth. I was looking at it thinking, they look like a bit of a ghost of a team. They're moving the ball around, but they don't believe that, that they're going to get anything out of this game. It didn't look quite right, and that was it. That was all she wrote. So there's the run. 5 defeats, a draw and a win in the last 7 games, dropping Bournemouth from 2nd down into 6th. And a bit more chaos in the transfer window as well. Ben Pearson in, Shane Long in on loan, Jack Wilshere in on a free. He'd been there as a loan player previously with Tindall. And look down the bottom there, Jack Simpson out to Rangers, Mark Travers to Swindon on loan. Gosling out to Watford, obviously Ben Pearson's in to replace him. And Josh King finally out the door there. So again, a little bit of chaos in the background and really, are they increasing the quality of the team? If you're taking out a King and bringing in a Shane Long on a loan for 3 months, age 34, yes, good player, good career, but if you're taking out Dan Gosling, okay, Ben Pearson's a bit younger. We don't know what the fee was. There was only 6 months left on his contract, and then Jack Wilshere, well, it's a free. It's kind of a bit of a gamble. His career's been on a bit of a downward trend, hasn't it? So, not necessarily the line of recruitment that you would want to see to make long-term improvement. Here's my thoughts, and get your thoughts in the comments. First, he was the easy option. He was. Instead of, right, Eddie Howe's gone, we'll take out all his staff, we're going to bring in a new manager, they're going to want their own players. The gamble was, in a Neil Adams, Darren Moore way that hasn't worked before in the Championship, what we're going to do, and it sounds stupid when you say it, what we're going to do, we're going to take the assistant from the manager we just fired, we're going to sell the best players from a team that got relegated, not give him many other players, and we expect promotion. So when you think about it like that, you can kind of see where we come from here. As I say, best players all sold. We're talking Nathan Ake, Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser. And it's not even that the best players were sold. It's that the players you're then bringing in have been substitutes and reserve players, haven't they? They've not been playing together. How can you expect those players to perform the pattern of play? and they haven't had the time to build it up. Few players brought in, yes, Riquelme and Carter Vickers, and I mean, yes, Watford moved people back and forth. Norwich obviously had saved their money and were able to bring in a load of players, but that means that advantage you have from the big extra broadcast money from the parachute payments, which we know is not actually supposed to be spent on players. It's supposed to be to absorb your Premier League wage bill so you can actually be competitive in the Premier League. Well, that's been used by many clubs and not used by Bournemouth here. Remaining squad relied on. Were they good enough? Are they good enough? A lot of good players in there. Solanke, Brooks, Danjuma, Cook, Billing. A lot of players who at championship level should be good enough. So who knows? I think that's the issue though. Use existing pattern of play. I think they were just expecting. It was almost like Eddie Howard got them to the top of the hill and they're now freewheeling and they just want the bike to keep going, but they're on an uphill slope again now. And they were hoping the bike was going to freewheel all the way up the hill back to the Premier League, but no. And then down the bottom there, it worked until Christmas. Unlucky then poor. I do think two things are true. Yes, he hasn't been good enough, Tindall, but there was that little bit of bad luck with the Jeff Lerma thing and that Brentford game where maybe if they carry on and go 2-0 up and win that, I don't know. It may be that maybe if those things had happened, Tindall's in a job for another 6 weeks. But it may be that could have been enough to keep the wheels rolling on the freewheel. Ruthless and understandable. Two things can be true. Again, yes, it is ruthless. And we will have people who, and I can't use a different word other than ignorance, will only look at the league table. And we can't help that, guys. When people are analysing this, all they'll do is look at the league table. And they will say the asinine, ridiculous statement, Bournemouth are 6th. How can they sack their manager? Without taking into account any of the nuance we've talked about over the last 17 minutes. If you're a Bournemouth fan and you're annoyed about that and you agree with the sacking, please just don't countenance those comments. You're always going to get people who from the outside don't understand the nuances and their reflexive sympathy kicks in for a manager being fired and they come out with claptrap like that. Look, I'm an Ipswich fan still having to answer this false narrative that evil Ipswich fans hounded out Mick McCarthy and that's why they're in League One now. And it's like, mate, you don't know the half of it. So, yes, they have been ruthless. But that's not to say it wasn't an understandable or the correct decision. I just had a quick look back through at the managers who've actually been able to bounce back. There's Harry Redknapp down the bottom with QPR in 2013-14. Kind of snuck through in the playoff final, didn't he? Alex Neil in 2015 is a good case study because this is exactly what Bournemouth need to replicate now. Norwich went down with Neil Adams. We're struggling. Exactly the same thing. Cheap option. Can we just get them back up with the minimum fuss? No. Alex Neil comes in and did get the job done. Bournemouth need to find their Alex Neil from somewhere, don't they? And then, look at the experience. Steve Bruce for Hull. Sean Dyche for Burnley. Rafa Benitez for Newcastle. So those three clubs got back with very experienced managers. Jason Tindall was a manager for 25 games or whatever it is. The outlier is Scott Parker there. Scott Parker is a bounce-back guy who was having all the same questions asked of him. Fulham stuck with it and did get over the line in the end. There are big differences, though. Big differences. One is that Parker implemented his own pattern of play. So he wasn't just relying on the one before. And two, they didn't get rid of all Parker's best player. Scott Parker had Mitrovic in the Championship. That's the equivalent of Bournemouth having Callum Wilson in the Championship. And maybe if Jason Tindall had Callum Wilson in the Championship, or Nathan Ake in the Championship, just for one season, maybe some poor performances and a bit of managerial experiences, which we did see from Scott Parker. Mitrovic and Kearney bailed him out a few times, didn't they? So there are subtle differences there, but I thought I'd throw up the bounce-back managers. And here we go. Let's have a bit of fun. There are the Sky Bet odds. Frank Lampard is the favourite. I'm sure people will flag up the links between Harry Redknapp and Bournemouth and Frank Lampard being related to Harry Redknapp and blah, blah, blah. Frank Lampard, I think he'd take it. Honestly, I think he'd go in at that level. He's done well in the Championship before. Parachute team. Can he get a bigger job? Will someone hire him in the Premier League? Who knows? Eddie Howe? Surely not. Surely the ship sailed. It would be silly to go back now. But there you go. He's in there. People will bet on him. Gary Monk, John Terry, Paul Cook, Slaven Bilic. Hasn't Bilic just taken a job in China or something? Stephen Robinson, forgive me. Don't even know who that is. Is he at the club? Or someone help me out with that one. Nathan Jones is an interesting one. Doing all right at Luton, but he had the big job, the parachute job at Stoke, and we all know how that went. Nigel Pearson, Chris Coleman. I don't know. I quite like Lampard on that list. I'm sure we'll get the big name derangement syndrome though, the Lampard derangement syndrome, and everyone will be like, no. He's a fraud, rah, rah, rah. I can't be bothered to get into that. I tell you what, the easiest thing is you let me know who you would like to see or who you think will be a good fit for Bournemouth. There we go. Jason Tindall. Can I get the other slide back up? Jason Tindall, fired by Bournemouth. What I will say is get your thoughts in the comments. Keep them respectful, please. Remember, this is essentially this guy's lifetime's work. So we shouldn't mock or be harsh. Good luck to Jason Tindall. Something's just crept in my mind. Jonathan Woodgate's just come in as a coach. They wouldn't, would they? Would they? Anyway, get your comments in. And yes, good luck to Jason Tindall. And I guess the upside for him in the future is maybe when Eddie Howe gets back in, Tindall will go back in and work for Eddie Howe in the future. We've seen that before with, I don't know, sort of a John Gorman and a Glenn Hoddle or a Mick McCarthy and a Terry Connor, where they have a go, but that doesn't stop them then going back and working in partnership with their previous boss in the future. Anyway, let me know what you think. Big news in the Championship. Jason Tindall, fired by Bournemouth. Get your thoughts in the comments. Over and out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.